Having trouble getting a PlayStation 5? Well, I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you when it comes to that. Resident Evil 8 moved a bunch of copies this weekend, and I'm going to briefly talk about my thoughts on the game as well. And finally, a surprise Nintendo Switch game gets announced, and I think this could be actually a pretty big deal for other reasons beyond just the game announced. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to like and share the video. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So ever since the PlayStation 5 and really to an extent the Xbox Series X have of course launched late last year, there's been a pretty big problem. It's been very hard to get these systems. Obviously, with a lot of retailers not being open during the time of the launch of the systems, many people had to buy these things online. Actually, everyone had to buy them online because they weren't being shipped to brick and mortar stores like we usually see with a console launch. Now, because of this, you had a lot of scalpers going on. We of course talked about it a few months ago. We made fun of these scalpers. People were buying up hordes of these systems and then like taking pictures with them and acting stupid. I don't know. It was absolutely ridiculous to me, but obviously these people were making money. There was groups of individuals who were working together in order to get and secure PlayStation 5s and then of course sell them at a very high price. Well, the general train of thought was that by the summer of 2021, it was going to be easier to get your hands on a PlayStation 5 with the world reopening up, stores starting to potentially carry them, and main thing was of course that the semiconductor chips that were being used to manufacture the PlayStation 5 were supposedly going to be easier to come by. But as we've seen so far, these issues are still prevalent in today's society, and now we actually have Sony coming out and saying it's going to be hard to get a PlayStation 5 until 2022. There's going to be manufacturing issues with this system until at least 2022 now because of how the world is actually shaping up to be, and of course these conductors and these chips not being easily readily available in order to manufacture these systems. So if you've been having trouble buying these systems online, it's not going to get any easier. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, RGT, you just talked about a few days ago on the channel that the PlayStation 5 is actually outpacing the PlayStation 4 in terms of sales. And you are correct. It is actually outpacing it by quite a large margin. So Sony themselves is seeing this probably as a positive thing. But as far as a consumer is concerned, you do have to realize these scalper groups, that people that are buying these up and then flipping them for an exorbitant price, they definitely exist, and I feel like they might be impacting the marketplace more than we're really giving them credit for. If you go to a GameStop in New York City or in a big city in a dense populated area, things are going to sell out a lot quicker than they would in like middle America, like Topeka, Kansas or something like that. You might actually get some PlayStation 5s that would be sitting on the shelves there, but of course because everything has to be purchased online, everything is being snapped up at an alarming rate. You don't have that little hole in the wall game store that you go to, maybe that Walmart that nobody likes to visit because it's on the bad side of town, that stocks a PlayStation 5, giving you the chance to get one. Everything is done online, which is now making people want to buy these systems because they see that it's a very hot commodity. Now, personally, I honestly feel like there isn't a massive reason to buy a PlayStation 5 right now, unless you really want to play something like Demon's Souls or Returnal, but my thought on that will be changing very soon because Ratchet is coming out next month, and Ratchet looks absolutely awesome. Like, this is one of the games I'm very excited for 2021 that we know about so far, and I feel like this is one of the real reasons to own a PlayStation 5. So our game sale is going to be affected by that. It's going to be very interesting to see how well Ratchet sells, considering that I think a large portion of people that purchased a PlayStation 5 could potentially be from these scalper groups. This will be a really good indicator because a game like Demon's Souls, a game like Returnal, those are more niche games. A game like Ratchet, you know, that has massive widespread appeal. So it's going to be a very interesting situation. Really, just follow people like Jake Randall on Twitter and watch his YouTube channel if you want to get these drops of PlayStation 5s. He really does a great job of informing people about these things and helping people buy these systems, because really that's going to be the way you're going to be able to buy a PlayStation 5, at least in the immediate future and potentially for the rest of the year. It's definitely weird to not be able to walk into a retail store and buy a PlayStation 5, but I mean, it's the world we live in. Next up, Resident Evil 8, of course, came out over this past weekend. A lot of people picked it up, and Capcom announced some pretty impressive shipped numbers for Resident Evil 8. They've already shipped over 3 million copies of the game worldwide, thus meaning that, yes, once again, Resident Evil 8 is a big success. But of course, there's been a lot of people asking me, RGT, where's your review of Resident Evil 8? You reviewed Resident Evil 2 Remake, you reviewed Resident Evil 3 Remake, what's going on? Did you not buy the game? Are you slacking on your Resident Evil? And no, if you follow me on Twitter, you would know that I did purchase the game. I actually beat the game this past Saturday, but I decided not to make a review of it because my vision of this game was kind of different than a lot of other people's vision of the game, and I couldn't really pinpoint why it was, but now I think I have, so I'm ready to talk about this game. Now, there will not be any spoilers in this portion of the video, so you don't have to skip it, and all of the footage being used is actually from 8-Bit Eric because I didn't capture any of this footage. I will have a link to Eric's channel in the description box down below. Go show him some love, subscribe to his channel, and watch some of his videos. But with Resident Evil 8, I think I fully understand why this game didn't click for me like it did for a lot of other people. Now, when it comes to Resident Evil games, I definitely prefer the third-person viewpoint more so than the first-person viewpoint. Resident Evil 7 I thought was a great game. It was scary as hell. It was definitely very tense. There was a really cool story going on with this as well, but it really didn't feel to me like a Resident Evil game. It felt more like an Outlast game where you have a gun with limited ammunition. That was one of the things that was very tense about the game. Whereas with Resident Evil 8, it almost feels more like Resident Evil 4 in a Resident Evil 7 engine, thus getting Resident Evil 8. It's definitely a lot more action orientated. You have a lot more guns. You have a lot more ammunition. I never really felt that same sort of tension I did in Resident Evil 7 because it just didn't hit me as very scary. There were some sort of interesting moments in the game, but as far as like fear was concerned, Resident Evil 7 to me was a lot scarier than Resident Evil 8. And I think it sort of goes back to that more Resident Evil 4 stance of more of a focus on the gunplay, more of a focus on the action, more so than on just the limited resources and things like that. I think the game looks absolutely beautiful. I think the story is actually kind of interesting. A lot of people didn't really like the twist that happens towards the end of the story. I actually did personally. I thought it was very interesting to sort of elongate the story as well. There was some weird story elements in the game, but I think they did a decent job of wrapping it up all together. I don't think Resident Evil 8 is a bad game. I don't necessarily think it's one of the best games I've played this year. There's a lot of things I like about it, but really at the end of the day, to me, like I said, I just sort of prefer that third-person Resident Evil style of gameplay because I think it works better for the franchise. And it could just be that nostalgia talking. It could just be, you know, the past experiences that I've had with Resident Evil, and I enjoy that third person more so than that first person perspective. If you're looking for a more action-orientated Resident Evil first-person experience, you're really gonna like this game. I've actually been replaying it. I've got a gun with unlimited ammo now, and I'm just treating it like a first-person shooter, and I'm actually having a little bit more fun with it than I did on my initial playthrough of the game. It's definitely a very solid game, definitely worthy of the Resident Evil moniker, but just for me, it didn't quite hit as some of the classic Resident Evil games did. And finally, we have a surprise announcement coming out late last night about a new game coming to the Nintendo Switch once again in the month of June. Like this June upcoming Switch games video is going to be massive. Like there's so much stuff coming out in the month of June, and this is yet another game I have to add to my collection because Disney, yes, Disney announced that a LucasArts game is coming to the Nintendo Switch with a dual pack of Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Ghoul Patrol. Now this game will be launching on June 29th. It's basically a port of Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Ghoul Patrol, which you probably didn't play Ghoul Patrol. It's a very expensive game. It's pretty much the sequel to Zombies Ate My Neighbors, but this dual pack will be coming to the Nintendo Switch, at least digitally for now. There is no physical version as far as we know. I'm sure a company like Limited Run Games will come along and fix that though. Now these are pretty much straight up ports. They will feature local co-op. You'll be able to save your progress as well. There'll be achievements in the game, and there's actually going to be a museum gallery in this game as well. Now you might be saying to yourself, okay, RGT, what's the big deal? You know, 2 Super Nintendo games coming to the Nintendo Switch. We already have the Super Nintendo Online service. Why didn't it come there? You know, that would have made more sense. But to me, the bigger story with this is the fact that now Disney is opening its vault of classic video games, and Disney's vault of classic video games isn't just Disney games. Obviously, they own the LucasArts / Lucas Games properties that came out over the years. So now we're starting to see more and more games come out. We saw the Aladdin and Lion King dual pack come out a year or two ago on the Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. Great way to relive those games, even though Lion King is hard as hell, and they did the proper Genesis version of Aladdin because that is the better version. I don't care. There are people out there who love the Super Nintendo version. I'm sorry. The Genesis version is better of Aladdin, and it's just bizarre that there's people that disagree with that like so vehemently, but then I guess, you know, I disagree with it if you think the Genesis version is worse than the Super Nintendo version. But obviously, there's a lot of games in Disney's back back catalog that they could re-release in these sort of little compilations. Think of all the awesome Mickey games and Mickey related games like Quackshot and of course Mickey Mania that came out during the 90s. I would love to see those games brought over to modern platforms, things like Mickey Mania. And then of course you have all the LucasArts games, you know, even beyond just Star Wars stuff. You have all those Day of the Tentacle games, and what was the Guybrush Threepwood game, Escape from Monkey Island or whatever. Like, there's a lot of stuff to really dig up with this, and I feel like that's probably the more exciting thing for a lot of people. Zombies Ate My Neighbors is awesome, Ghoul Patrol is awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to those games, but I think this is very telling of Disney's future of going to their back catalog of stuff and potentially re-releasing more stuff. Like, who doesn't want a remake of KOTOR? You know, people have been saying that that's something that's in the works, and I feel like since that's a acquired Disney property now, that's something that could be potentially happening. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the future of Disney and modern platforms, all of these game IPs coming. But yes, Zombies Ate My Neighbor and Ghoul Patrol will be coming to your Nintendo Switch at the end of June, and I'm very excited for this. If you've never played Zombies Ate My Neighbors, you're in for a real treat. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. Go Knicks, big game tonight against the LA Lakers. We just beat the Clippers. Let's just sweep LA. You know, let's show you guys that East Coast is Beast Coast, West Coast is not as good. Not as good. And as always, guys, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.